Welcome back, everyone. You're listening to Folks Frens, a podcast by Folks Finance. Here, we invite the brightest builders, creators, and thought leaders to talk blockchain, tech, finance, and everything in between. I'm your host, Ibu Kurel. Let's learn something together. Assets discussed on Folks Frens may be held by participants of the podcast. This podcast is purely educational and not intended as advice. Enjoy the episode.
Welcome, everybody, to Folks and Frens, episode 1. I can't tell you how excited this is. Excited I am for this. Excuse me, I can't even get my words right. We are here in the first episode of our new show, which is kind of like the old show, but just upgraded. Welcome, everybody, to Folks and Frens. My name is Ibu Kurel. I'm your host here with my co-host Benedetto Biondi, the CEO of Folks Finance. How you doing, Ben?
Hey, I'm so excited as well. And can I still do some stupid jokes sometime, or we need to be more serious here?
No, jokes.
Okay, good. So, guys, you know why Ibu is so excited? Because if you go on Spotify and check Folks and Frens, he was the one doing the new beats. That's very sick. You should have a look.
Yes, so this podcast will be on all platforms. It will be on Spotify, Apple, I think Amazon as well. So what's gonna be awesome is that if you come in late to the space, or you just can't listen on Mondays, you can listen the whole week. You can listen at any time, download it to your phone. These will be coming out on all platforms. So super excited for that, expanding the reach of what we can do. Yes, I did make the beat for the intro, so if you listen to the podcast on Spotify or something, you will hear that. That'll be pretty dope. And you'll probably hear might switch it up every once in a while just for fun. Let's get into the actual show, because I don't even want to waste any more time. Today, we have a super special guest who is Jess Chin, the new CMO of the Algorand Foundation. So this is super, super exciting. We're going to get into some awesome discussion with her. Can't wait to get into it. Before I let you say hi, Jess, and introduce yourself, let's just get everyone in this space. If you can, take the link at the top, post it on your page. Let's see how many people we can get in here, because we deserve a big audience for our guest today. Jess, welcome to Folks and Frens. We are so honored to have you as our first guest. And how are you doing today?
Great. It's great to be here. Super thank you for having me. It's an honor to chat. Also, hi, Benedetto. It's so good to see you again. I'm really excited to dive in.
Welcome, Jessica. It's a pleasure for us to having you here as the first guest of this new series.
Yeah, this is going to be great. Let's get into it. So Jess, you're new. You're new to the Algorand ecosystem. You're new to the Algo fam, and new to crypto, I guess, in a professional sense. I'm sure the first question I'm going to ask is, how did you find yourself getting interested in Web3, in the blockchain industry, and what made you gravitate toward it as a next step of your career path?
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways, I would say blockchain in the space found me first. I would say I know a lot of folks here may already know some of my career background, but I say that a lot of the principles and ethos of this space I experienced very heavily in my time at Nike. So I think Nike at the time was very much like a community driven, network driven, as well as in terms of like giving revenue share back to the creator. That conversation was being had back like a decade ago, right? And already in the ethos of culture. And so for me, the principles of Web3 have always been like a big part of how I think about, one, marketing, and then two, just how the world needs to shift and really driving decentralization as well as just access for all, especially those who normally do not have access. And so I think that like the space of Web3 in general is that idea of access and the opportunity to really scale exchange and kind of go back to the original form of the internet is something I've always been passionate about. Now, what brought me to this moment in Algorand, I think people would say like this is like a really rough time in the industry, and joining at this time feels like am I crazy, right? But I would say the more I see it, I'm actually so glad to be coming into a time when things are being cleared up, when there's an opportunity to really get clear of like what really will rise to the top is real world utility and really driving that conversation around like we can actually have the conversations we're supposed to be having, versus I think a lot of the riffraff and a lot of the stuff that we're seeing is actually showing and proving out why we need truly decentralized ecosystems, and Algorand being one of the leaders there. So yeah, that's kind of an early thought.
Ivo, don't you feel Jess is like the superhero that came here to bring Algo to the moon?
Yeah, I do, but I also don't want to put too much pressure on her, so I just want to like not mention that. But I can definitely say that a lot of the community did feel that way, especially when you did your first Twitter space and you kind of got announced and people saw your pedigree, your background. They're like, okay, she's the one who can bring Algorand out. Historically, Algorand's marketing has been criticized as its weakest point. Everyone for, the 2.5 years that I've been involved in this community has kind of said that the tech is great, it works fantastically, but the marketing isn't up to par. What did you see in Algorand that drew you to the position here? I don't know if you were entertaining, other positions in other blockchains, but what about Algorand specifically made you say this is an interesting project?
So yeah, at the time, actually, Solana, Polygon, and Algorand, they were all hiring their marketing leaders, and it was a really interesting. I thought it was fascinating that they're all all seeing this as like a very key lever to be looking at to move the needle and to grow in a really like critical time. I think for me, Algorand specifically, one was the executive team, meeting them, the diversity that we have, both from like a thought background as well as just like broad demographics, nothing like it. And so I think meeting them, I was just like, this is a really unique group of people that really have such thoughtfulness of how to approach this space, and really drive a clarity in a way that we're really going to need. And people who are truly reliable, have like deep sense of character integrity. And I was like, for me, I care a lot about who I work with and who I trust. And then secondly, I would say it was the fact that I think in some of those spaces, a lot of the roadmap has been defined. And I like playing in white spaces and being able to define the destiny, and also being able to shape it. And I think Algorand had a lot of amazing opportunity in white space where marketing really would be seen as that lever where we can move the dial. And so I was really excited about that. I also just felt like the community was amazing. Everything I knew, and obviously the tech is like a no-brainer. And for me, like, again, only working for really strong tech companies, I really do care about that a lot. So wanting something that I could stand on, that was reliable, that wouldn't fail, was really important to me. Somewhere that you wouldn't have that kind of compromise. And then I think finally it was just like the idea of like, I felt like we were in a space where we could be the ones that grow with the community, grow with the projects, grow with the founders, grow with the devs, and really build that out. Felt like it was a really big opportunity to do as a marketing person.
Ben, you've been in the ecosystem for a few years. Why do you think that Algorand's marketing has suffered so far? Is it? I feel like personally, I'm going to give you something to work with here. I feel like Algorand is kind of stuck between two minds, whether they want to market to your average crypto user or like a new user, or huge institutions. It's always kind of felt like bouncing between those two options. What do you think about the whole thing, like having been here for a little while?
Yeah, I had the pleasure to talk with Jess about this already a few times, and um, specifically, I think that we had the main problem, right? That puts a lot of investment on the long-term vision, but crypto is something very aggressive that needs a lot of hype on what's the hype of the moment, whether it could be NFT, whether it could be DeFi, whether it could be something else, right? So I think during the past years we have always tried to get to the long shot, right? Which is the institutional adoption, which is also banks coming, management coming also from institution. Indeed, we lacked a lot of Web3 cool stuff. That's what brings people to actually buy Algo, and if Algo grows in price, then you have more money to do more things. So I don't know. For example, was time that we was in conferences where Algorand was sponsoring, but we wouldn't see much of effort from the team at the booth. So that's sometimes was very painful to see, especially for builders like us that invest efforts, time, and then you would appreciate having the layer kind of embracing you and supporting you. So I think there was mistakes in the past. But I'm confident that I really like Jess, and she's very hands-on and hardworking. So I think together with John Woods, that was definitely the best new hiring.
Yeah, John is also an incredible public speaker. You see him all over the place. It seems like he does a Twitter space every day or some type of AMA. So yeah, he's really been advocating. It's been great to have him since about last summer. Jess, what do you think is the biggest selling point of Algorand right now? And the second part of the question is, who do you sell that to? Like, biggest selling point, and then what's the target market that you're kind of maybe analyzing in these early weeks of you being on the team?
Yeah, it's a good question, and one that I think has evolved, since I've come. But I do think a lot of it actually stays true to something I said when I first came in, which is audience matching the right message at the right time to the right audience, right? And so when I think about it, I think a lot about, for us, there are multiple unique selling points that Algorand just hasn't really put out there just yet, and all of those speak differently to different audiences. So I'll give I think for me, obviously, devs, doubling down on devs is so crucial for us, and that is a story that we need to just keep doing and hammering out. And I think for us, it's what type of devs, right? Devs that are the experienced ones, the ones who, and this is both Web 2 and Web 3, the ones who are willing to look under the hood, the ones who are not, the ones who want to look under the hood, care a lot about the product, once they like it, they'll stay. And I think those are the types of devs that, have a certain pride to them. And what they want to see and understand is things about the ease of use, things about of how superior this is from a reliability standpoint, that they're not going to build something that all of a sudden just goes away. Also the fact that the reality that you have the right education, the right community, and knows that they will not go at it alone. That the Algorand's here to come alongside them and make sure that they have everything they need to be on this journey, right? And that we have these steps planned out for them, that they can succeed here. So I think that for me, that type of messaging for this particular audience is what it needs to be about. And then I think about enterprise level, right? And I'll drop here that I've had a few really good conversations thus far with some names, and some friends. And I think what they've been really enjoying is the idea that Algorand, one, that sustainability, I know that sustainability one has been we've used that a lot, but I think it's a multifold, right? It's the idea that Algorand is a place for access, right? Algorand is a place for where you're going to find where culture meets technology, meets sustainability, meets reliability and scalability, right? We're solving real world problems at scale is what's happening here. And that they want a technology partner that they can really trust to be able to have scaled transactions at a certain speed, a certain finality, and a certain reliability, that they want, if they want to bring in their 1 billion audience members too. And so that story is one that I feel like only Algorand really, where you have no compromise, and that story is really where it comes true, right? And so I think those are two very base examples, but that's kind of how I think about it.
Yeah, I definitely hear what you're saying. I want to maybe put a counterpoint out there, which is that the compromise with Algorand is that it's not connected to the rest of the blockchain ecosystem. So everything else is incredible, technology, incredible finality and transactions per second, and all those things that an enterprise might want, except that it's not in the ecosystem. And so that's a huge detriment to what seems like a selling point of the chain. Benedict, so what do you think about that? Like, Algorand's, the benefits of Algorand, but then it also being disconnected from many other blockchains. Like, how does that make it difficult as a builder?
Yeah, I mean, difficult for some reason, because obviously, for example, for us being DeFi rights and being also innovators in DeFi, nevertheless, if the product can be better than other DeFi app in the sector, I mean, in general, in other ecosystem, and indeed trying to outreach users from other ecosystem is tricky, because Algorand community is very niche, but niche in a good way, because the Algorand community is this community that is here for the technology, is not here because of the hype behind the token. It's not here because there are incentives in DeFi. We are here because we believe in the technology, and we believe it's gonna make it in the long term, as just said, like, for really changing the world. So that's kind of difficult from our side, because obviously you want to grow in numbers, but for that to happen, we need to have Algorand growing as well. So that's the limit.
So you're talking about, hype cycles, even, major partnerships, even things like volume, of course, of transactions, and even the token price, being arbitrary as it is, it still can bring people in. Like, Jess, even though Algorand is, everyone in the crypto industry, if they know Algorand, they know it to be fast, effective, but they still don't gravitate toward it. Why do you think Algorand hasn't seen any real explosive growth despite its technical excellence, strong DeFi, and vibrant NFT scene?
And I definitely want to first respond to, like, I think Benedetto, I think you and I are on very similar pages. First off, on not being part of the broader ecosystem, and I don't know if anyone is at ETH Denver, but for those who are, we put out a really nice billboard. I don't know if you saw, but it specifically says, and this is just like very early testing, right? It says Algorand handshake EVM, and that is, again, combat. Yeah, I think that's combating a narrative that, like, we are completely, unbridged in any way, that there's, like, no connection point. And I will say that, like, from a technological roadmap, like, we're going to continue to make sure that we have those inroads and on-ramps, as well as, I would say that we already have existing connections too. And I think that only needs to grow, right? Just because of tapping into the existing base there. Now, speaking to your question around why we haven't, I think there's probably a lot of reasons. And again, like, I'm new here, so I will not speak to, like, predecessors' moves that led us to this moment specifically. I will say, like, broadly speaking, though, the industry is still, like, very, very nascent. Like, when I look at the numbers of, like, how many devs, like, Web3 devs there really are, when I look at the numbers of, like how many users we're really talking about across, like, this, it is not like these are not numbers that the larger tech world would be able to blink an eye to. So I think we're still so early that it's still an opportunity for anyone's game. And so I think where Algorand specifically needs work on is definitely like, just larger brand recognition. People go to places where they've heard your name, right? The people are willing to go when they hear like there's something going on. And so there's a broader narrative, I think, that hasn't been stewarded enough around like being part of the cultural conversation and just being like, oh, like, I mean, I think the moment that Polygon did that Starbucks thing, even though, yes, they paid X million dollars to get that, was smart because you put your name against a household name. And that just drives, again, a different, even though your tech may not be as good, all the other things tied to it, it brings a level of like credibility and recognition that we have not had yet. But basically, I mean, what was amazing about this was that I realized that a lot of the other projects that were speaking around like how they were building Algorand, at least two of the use cases were real estate. And they were huge, like some of them are huge companies with like huge founders, like kind of tied to them. And I was just really surprised. And I was like, I actually went up to one of them and I asked, I was like, so why did you choose Algorand? And one of the things they said to me was like, did you know that Algorand's the only one that you can like the only technology platform you can rekey on? And I was like, oh, I actually didn't know that. And then they started talking about like the scale transactions, the level of like stability that they needed for what they were doing with real estate. Like you cannot fail, right? And so I was like, oh, that's super interesting that like in this industry, there's like some real world use cases that only Algorand could really be about. Again, I'm not saying like we are a real estate blockchain in any way, but I think like my overall statement was just like, I think ultimately, whether it be in finance, whether it be in like, again, like in entertainment, in gaming, in real estate, prop tech, right? All of these in general, we need to just make sure that we are providing the most value for the end user with utility in mind. And that it is something that, again, Algorand can shine. And those are the stories we need to be telling. And then we can curate those partnerships against those different media segments that really do care. Again, the ones that really care about finance, the ones that really care about culture, the ones that really care about XYZ, right? So that's how I think about it. But again, I said early on, this is a personal take. This does not represent the rest of the foundation.
Yeah, I totally hear what you're saying. The technology is open enough and applicable enough that you can have different verticals, to attack in a certain way. You can have the sports side, the music side, the finance side, anything in between. I wanted to ask about some partnerships. You brought it up. You may not have amazing answers because you're still new, but during the bear market, we've seen some significant partnership deals done between Web 2 and Web 3 companies. Recently, we saw Anchor partner with Microsoft. We saw Optimism partner with Coinbase. Like you said, we saw Polygon partner with Starbucks. A lot of people thought or continue to hold the belief that Algorand should or could have been the blockchain selected for a lot of these partnerships because of its technical capabilities. Why do you think so far that Algorand hasn't been selected for these opportunities, or are we even in the running for these opportunities? Is our hat in the ring? Are we focused on different things?
Yeah, I think all the partnerships you just listed are incredibly different. So I think that's just one to be really clear about, right?
That's
like
true.
The Starbucks partnership one is a paid for sponsorship by Polygon to Starbucks. That's one. And then you have ones they're technical, right? So, I mean, the Avalanche AWS one, I think the other one that you mentioned as well, like those are all like technical integrations where honestly it's us and for them to be a validator for us. And so that, again, very, very different versus something where they're actually like building on chain for XYZ reasons. That's something that's incredibly important because this conversation needs to be shown that like we are looking at all three types of partnerships, right? And strategically, I think for me, especially since I came in, it's like, what is that playbook, right? And there's a few playbooks here that I think are really important to think about. One is that technical playbook. We are 100% looking at that. Like that is like very top of mind for me and radar from a radar perspective. And those conversations are being had. And so I think those ones honestly are not like true partnerships in any respect beyond the fact that, like we're using them as a validator. In some ways that already exists for us. I think we just haven't talked about it right in the right way. So that there's just like very simple work to be done there. And then secondly is around like, where are the ones that we can flex from a channel strategy perspective, right? So what are like really important partnerships that we need? And I will say this, I don't think we fully have set up yet, which needs to be done, which is like, who are some partners that can be the ones to refer people who are already looking to build on a particular, they're in that decision-making criteria of like, who do I build on? I already have an idea. I need to know who I build on. We need to have some channel, and I'm actively, with a few other folks, like actively looking at like, who are those channel partners to really get that for us, and so that they can refer when people are at that decision-making point. So there's a lot of consulting practices that do that. And then you have ones that are like, who are the ones that we want to go after because we feel like they will move the needle in terms of that brand level conversation or that level of partnership that would move the needle for us, right? And those are ones that we need to be very targeted, very specific, and then go in with like, and they might be ones who are like, we don't know enough about Web3. We have some thoughts, but would love a more deeper partnership on, and that might take a little bit longer. And so that's the third one that again, from a brand perspective, I'm also, really endeavoring on as well. But it's definitely a full-on playbook, and I definitely have some strong thoughts on. One thing I'll say to this group is that, again, I think this is a moment where the community needs to come together and be like all voices and champions, right? For the Algorand ecosystem, for the Algorand tech. And anytime that we get like referrals, like honestly, I want to tap the community to be like advocates, for us, and also for themselves, for them to refer like potential opportunities to build on Algorand so that we all can grow and we can all rise. But I think there's like a criteria set of the ones that really would be most likely to build on chain. So those are some thoughts.
Very interesting thoughts. I want to ask you some more questions, but we also have community questions. I'm gonna ask you one more of my own questions and then jump to some community questions. What is the perception of the crypto industry in Silicon Valley and the Bay Area? Like, I've heard that people in that area, in the investor class, in the builder class, in the large company class, are becoming maybe less interested in the blockchain industry. Maybe they were hyped up by it in 2021, 2022, and that's come down. But is that wrong? From living in that area, being involved in that world, what do people think of this world?
Yeah. And I can definitely share because I've spoken at a few things here. There is still a very vibrant community who I think is just like very, very bullish on this entire space. I think what is happening is that there is a disillusionment, I would say, like that is real, in terms of the hype. And also I think and it's similar to like broader tech, right? And openness to like regulation, and also looking for just seeing the ones who will rise to the top. Now what I will say was that I think ever more than ever though, the idea of like actually focusing on real world use cases in the tech, that has been the primary conversation that's risen to the top. I will say that momentum has not slowed. Like the number of builders, the number of those who are like, who really do want to explore and like dream up in this space, those numbers haven't gone down. But I think it's just really that they really just want to focus on building. And that's the sentiment from the community. And we're still seeing like some amazing things spread out, like a bunch of like amazing co-working spaces for different folks are here. And like, I think there's a lot of like on the ground momentum. I do think that some of the VCs may be a little burnt. And so I think they're probably like re-looking at how they think about it. But again, I think it just kind of opens up the opportunity for us to have some good conversations now than starting now.
So things haven't slowed down. I mean, that's a great thing to hear. Let's get into some community questions here. This one's from Average Zen. He says, broadly speaking, in the near future, can we expect to see more mainstream television and or digital streaming advertising for Algorand? What about a Stacy network press appearance schedule to organize the community-driven engagement with awareness and views?
Oh, I like that. I like that thinking. We are 100% one on the Stacy side, and just John's side. My dream is to make him like our Johnny Ives of Apple, But basically, the goal is to get executives a lot more out there. And so the coming months, yes, like, and I think it's interesting to hear you say, to talk about getting the community activated there as well in terms of letting you guys know the schedule. I think that's definitely something that we can look at. And then on the first front, I think we deeply care about every dollar that is spent to have significant ROI and impact. And so broad-based like TV streaming, I don't know if, again, like if you just put out TV streaming for the front end of Algorand and there's not a very clear funnel in that will actually prove out, like bring in the right audiences we need, it may not be the most use of your marketing dollars. So yes, that is going to happen. I don't think it's going to be priority for the immediate now. I love doing TV and digital, and like that's definitely my world. I think we need to get a few things in order before we really start doubling down, because that spend is actually big, right? And you want the funnel to be clean so that there's no drop-offs if you start opening that funnel at the very top.
So we're not going to see the Algorand Super Bowl ad next year.
I would give us 2 years. Give us 2 years, but definitely we'll be doing a Super Bowl in the next few years. But I don't know about the immediate one.
Are you being for real or are you just joking?
Let's just say it's in my mind.
I'm sure it's in every advertiser's mind to get a Super Bowl ad for sure. Do you think Super Bowl ads are worth it?
It depends again how you think about it, right? I think they're rarely worth it unless you're really, really strategic about how you play it up. And I think I can name like on my hand the number ones that were actually like meaningful, that actually drove the kind of results that people were hoping for, looking for, that would get you investment of like tens of millions, make it worth it. There's very few. So that's why I said like you need time to build up to that moment.
Do you remember the Coinbase ad from 2 years ago that was just the QR code bouncing around?
Yep.
That's one of the best.
Yep. I wasn't gonna name any because I didn't want to. That one was extraordinarily good. I also know the people who did it, and they were actually like, they weren't even going to do it until they were forced to, in some ways. So, that one was a really great example again of a funnel, right? Both top and bottom that was ready to make it worth their buck investment. So, but yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, insane. I mean, $0 spent on production value, and I think it crashed the website. So pretty insane. Any updates on the FIFA partnership and marketing strategy? That comes from Oyster Pack.
Yeah, I won't speak too heavily in it because we're actually in conversations now. We are, I think, again, like there's some really big opportunities to really tap in there. We are, I won't be able to speak too much into. But yeah, it's, I would say those are ongoing conversations that are being had right now.
Okay, last community question. Why not following anyone?
Whoever asked that.
Crypto leak him.
Yeah.
Crypto leak him.
I think for me, I'm the one thing I realized, like, John, Stacey, they all have like great, they have their own like perspective on how they do their handles. I think for me, I just really feel like I want to be that like unbiased voice in this space. And so for now, at least for now, kind of holding back, right? And really, really allowing it to just like kind of seep in before really making any choices of who I follow and whatnot. Because I feel like, again, who you choose to follow can show where your alliance is like, et cetera. So I just want to be as unbiased as possible for now.
What about NFT profile picture?
That's coming.
Yeah, true.
That's coming. Yes.
I actually totally understand that, because on this page, Algo HQ, before I was working for Folks Finance, I was making videos, and back when I started, there was nowhere to get good news about Algorand besides the Algorand page and the Algorand Foundation page. So I only followed those two pages, and I only kept following them for those only two pages I followed for 2 years. And then the community had grown enough that I was like, well, I get a lot of information from various other people now, so I can start to follow other people. But I definitely think that you should follow Folks Finance as your first follow. Just saying, I think you'd be pretty dope. But
Fair plug. Fair plug. Fair plug.
I got to drop it in there.
Yeah, totally. I've got to drop, but I do want to say to this particular group, again, like as a community, if you feel like you have something really meaningful in terms of a connection or relationship that you're like, this really could move the needle for Algorand, like always, always down to kind of hear that. So just really, really excited, really excited about these conversations and very, very looking forward to any more of these conversations and also a lot of the actions that we'll be taking together on this journey.
Oh, it's going to be absolutely incredible. I cannot wait to see the impact you have, over the next couple months, through this year and beyond. I know you got to go. So I want to say to everyone, thank you so much for coming to this episode of Folks and Friends, episode 1. If you missed any of it, it will be on all platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and I believe Amazon as well. And of course, YouTube. We'll post a link to that on our social media probably tomorrow or whenever those get uploaded. I want to say, Jess, thank you so much for coming and spending an hour with us.
No, happy to. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks, Jess. Thanks, Ivo, for moderating so great. And thanks to the audience for being here.
Yeah. Ben, any last words?
No, I think we are all good. It was a great space, and I'm looking for the next one.
I am too. All right, everybody. We'll see you next week. Keep an eye on our social media. Go follow Jess's Twitter. Follow Folks Finance Twitter. Keep updated with what everyone is doing. And we'll see you next time. Bye.